right, mission statement.
Mr. Jacobs submitted a draft mission statement in the board packet. And that was, an email was sent to the board. Mr. Jacobs, would you like to go over what you submitted, please?
Yes, thank you. Following the discussion at the last board meeting on March 9, I provided a bit of a summary of the kind of straw polling that we conducted and the feedback received. So I listed that on page
159 in board book.
Yep, thank you. And so basically, I mean, there was a clear trend towards option B as presented a month ago. However, there were also various comments made about good parts of option A and C. So I attempted to basically integrate, sort of take the best parts from all the statements, and what resulted is the one that is in board book on the next page. And I think, because I mean, I do consider this, it seems like we're pretty close, so I'm going to read it. At Riverside Brookfield High School, we value character as well as achievement. A partnership of students, parents, teachers, administrators, and taxpayers committed to educational excellence and innovation. We deliver a rigorous and well-balanced education for academic, artistic, and health-related growth of each student. Graduates are well-equipped to be responsible members of a diverse and ever-changing world. This proposed statement is 56 words long. Again, represents a bit of my attempt of sort of trying to tease out the best parts. I did think it makes sense to include the stakeholders specifically, as was discussed last time, because leaving them out almost makes it a little too generic. I think it's actually, there are real essential stakeholders, starting with the students, of course, and the parents, the teachers, and so forth. So those listed, and I purposefully also then included the word taxpayers, because without their contributions, the school would not exist. And so I felt that might be a good way of not listing everybody, but basically the key ones. And there was a suggestion that I received today about the one word that I'm was not so thrilled about, but just couldn't sort of break through, was the health-related growth, because it's a little clunky. Health-related is just not a very nice word. However, I think the aspect of health is very important, and the comment was made about social emotional well-being. And I totally agree with that. But at the same time, I think there might be some sensitivity if we not also acknowledge physical growth, i.e. all the sports-related things. And so, I don't know how this works procedurally, but I'm now amending my own statement with an option that would say, education for academic and artistic, that's already there. And then instead of saying health-related growth, it would say athletic and social emotional growth.
Back at 6 years. That's exactly what I was thinking.
No, 57.
Don't be exaggerating.
Because the health-related growth was already there, so we're replacing that with social emotional. But we would add the word athletic just to, that's a big deal for a lot of people in our school. And so what I would like to suggest in terms of discussion is we should obviously now have the discussion about further wordsmithing or hashing that out. My hope would be that, or if we can come to a consensus that there's a wording that we all endorse, I would recommend, also per last meeting's discussion, that we then publish or post that statement for feedback to the community, to the RB community, with the question, and not with the questions, do you like this or not? Because I think we've worked through it. However, I think it would be worthwhile to say, is there something missing? Or is there something too much that, we could reduce it back down again? But, with specific reference to community input, I'm also, I just noticed that the two newly elected board members are with us in the room tonight. And I think before they're sworn in, they're not going to have a vote, but as a matter of courtesy and curiosity and so forth, I think it would be very prudent to ask them specifically for their review as well, so that we could take that feedback into account as well. And then depending on how quickly that could all happen, we could possibly be able to move on it and adopt it sooner or later. But I think that's all part of the discussion, so I'd like to open it up for all of your inputs.
Well, I like everything, and I like your suggestion. I can accept that. There's only one additional word, so you'd be at 59. And I don't think the words are, that I thought was missing, and given what's been important to you specifically, Tom. After artistic, I thought the word civic was missing. And, given, really your focus on sustainability and, even the board starting to look at diversity, and civic was in the other two. So it'd just be one additional word. I think that's been a focus that we've talked about. So that's the only thing I would suggest. I could vote on that as is, but that was the only thing that seemed to be missing.
Laura, I appreciate your comment. I really do, and I am in total favor of your suggestion because I do like that word a lot.
Can you read again what you just added? And I guess the reason I'm asking is you were explaining the deletion of health-related. In my mind, I was just putting in the word wellness. I wrote down wellness, but you said something.
Yeah.
Social emotional, yeah.
So, okay. So you said athletic, social.
Could you say it with the civic part too?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
A whole reread?
Yes.
Right. Let me do this, but also just to clarify. So the first thing is a straight replacement. Rather than using health-related with a dash in between, it would be social, emotional. That's the one-for-one trade-off. And now there would be two additions, the word athletic to acknowledge all the sports, and civic would be an additional word as well. So then it would read, we deliver a rigorous and well-balanced education for academic, artistic, athletic, civic, and social emotional growth.
So I don't think it's worth nitpicking on, but I do think the word wellness might encompass some of those other items, but since we're going to put this to the community for comment, I don't think it's worth amending further. I just, there's a certain element of awkwardness there with that long list, and so someone may be better equipped to put them in the right order so they flow right or something.
Yeah.
Social emotional growth is in the educational realm, usually is all encompassing of athletics, activities, social emotional supports, kind of like the non-academic or
Anything that's
non-artistic
not academic.
development.
Including athletics.
That's kind of the idea of why you have extracurriculars, is to try to develop those social skills and that they would use, whether it's conflict resolution, team building, dealing with adversity, the emotional, So it could, most people would, I shouldn't say that, most educators would recognize that social emotional piece encompasses the extracurricular as well as the curricular experiences throughout the high school experience, or the school experience.
I watched some of those robotic competitions. That was just as fierce as the football competition, right? It was pretty serious stuff. So I would agree with that.
Well, and it's
Social
good to know because I certainly wasn't aware of that. So it depends, if you all think
That would
that
cut
that's...
down on your list, right?
Yeah.
No, it needs a cadence, right? You need to be able to say it somehow.
It's not redundant, but it seems it because you're like, oh, I'm up to 5 things.
So, but are we saying we could remove the word athletic?
Yes.
And just have social emotional growth. 'Cause
So
it would
it'd be our
encompass-
academic, artistic, civic, and social emotional growth.
I'd be all for that. I mean, I think that's actually really good.
And not to add to your word count, you may want to put the, so, right, so
Thank
the
you.
education for the academic, artistic, civic, and the social emotional growth of each student.
Okay.
So you brought a word back.
I think you're at
I
60.
do have one more nit, and that's the replacement of community with taxpayers. Taxpayers, absolutely important, but it is somewhat limiting, right? We have members of our community that, may not pay property taxes, right? They're just as legitimate members of the community and the
I wrote
participation.
that down as well.
Yes, so something about that word, I see what you were trying to do that connection, but I'm inclined to go back to community. Do you agree, Mona?
Yes.
A little bit?
It
Anyone
doesn't
else?
bother me one way or another, but if you live in an apartment, you're still technically paying taxes. Because through your rent, the tax money's accounted for. If you're a business owner, you're still paying taxes. I mean, it wouldn't stop me voting on it. I mean, what I liked about the taxpayers is, the reality is that everybody has to put money down for this school
Mhm.
to run. And that's the acknowledgement that people are paying.
Not necessarily just people with kids in the school.
Not
Everybody.
necessarily people, right, the retired people who've lived here for 60 years are still paying for this school.
They should get a free football ticket.
I mean, I think I'm totally open to either, because
Yeah.
I think the points are well taken. I mean, my thinking was a little bit along the lines of, when you consider the big conflicts that any school has every so often, or a referendum, or, at some point, you have to go to the community and ask them to agree. And so,
And ask them to pay money.
And it's gonna
Correct.
pay money, right,
so by sort of calling it out just in that clarity that it is about money,
Right.
and people are either going to agree to that
right.
or not, I thought maybe it's wrong, but to sort of just be that much more explicit and acknowledge that. But I'm open to either.
We spend a lot of time talking about money.
Yeah, and
Significant
we
amount
get
of our board
stopped
time.
going to the polls, having a referendum or not. We get stopped when we run out of money. We get stopped when taxes aren't collected and there is no money. So a lot of what we do has to do with money.
Yeah. It's a tough one, because I'm with y'all. I can see it both ways, taxpayers or community. I'm all about the
Yeah.
community. The community it's about there's, you put it on what's best for the school. You've got the kids on top, and then you've got this community, business, and staff in a triangle, right? And it has to be right by all three of those pieces to make it the greatest school that we can make it, right? I mean, so
So put it out there as drafted. It's going to have whatever it is, 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever the decision is.
yeah, I think that's our next thing. We got to
Yeah.
decide if we get it out there. Say we get it out there this week by Friday,
Yeah.
then 2 weeks is another board where that might be too short.
I don't think so. You don't want to leave it out there too long. It becomes insignificant, I mean.
I mean, but
people
we're having a board meeting a week after that, right?
Sure,
Which is
and I
seems
think
like, so you
that's,
could do it in a 3-week.
I think
New board could
anybody,
be seated, done.
well, it should
give something
be
to vote on,
done
it'd be
before
nice.
this board leaves, absolutely 100%.
I think it is done.
It needs, well, then, is the question, do we put it out there?
I think you could do 2 weeks.
I think a shorter timeframe is
If Tom gets me the
fine.
final draft tomorrow or Thursday, we gotta get it up immediately. It's
Yeah.
not a big
No,
process
it's
to
not
get it
hard
posted.
to get it
Yeah,
on the
I'm fine with
website
that.
and a quick Google form link to go along with it with 2 questions, right?
Right, suggested
Then-
changes and,
Additions and deletions or
Because then
whatever.
the new board has to go to the next one, which is kind of a bigger piece, is you go from the mission down to the goals, right?
Right, and then you'll have a new
That's-
board, but you can't this is work that's taken 2 years with this current board. We should be able to hand off something to an incoming board. And now they'll take this mission that has been vetted, people have had opportunity, community has had opportunity. Now they'll be able to take this mission statement and start to dig in and work through goals. And that's important, that, we are hindered in doing the work we're elected to do without getting our goals. And so we've got to,
Yeah.
get in. We got to get in
We got
with
to
it.
get to the next piece.
We got to get to the next piece.
Got to get to the goals, and then we got to get
Posting
to
it, voting on it,
strategic
and
plan
getting to
based on the
next
goals,
piece is
right?
essential.
Which is where we really wanted to get to in the first place.
Yes.
And, but for COVID, we'd already be done with most of that, but it is what
Probably.
it is.
I guess the only question that I have is if through that 2-week review process, if there are let's say there's 3 comments that are really good, where somebody says like, why did you not think of this? Then we'll have to see whether we can work through that at the next board meeting to then adopt, or it
Go to
could
the-
slow
Well,
down a bit.
sometimes it's got to go down the line. I mean, you've got to vet it correctly. If we have trust in the community to do the right. If you're on the board, you're doing it for the right reason. It's going to be just fine. If it goes another week, it's okay.
I would hope
you know?
if there's a comment that we could finally come to agreement on that comment after talking about it for 2 years. I mean, how out of the
You sound like we
field
talked
could the
about it 2
comment
years.
be,
We haven't
No,
talked about it for 2
I know.
years. We took like
But
a year off.
55 words or bust.
Yeah, right? I want 60. All right, well, let's get the draft, let's put it up,
Yeah.
and then we'll plan on adopting that on the 27th, unless we get
Well,
some really
so today's
fabulous.
the 13th, if you get it up by the 15th, and you close it by the 25th, which is the Sunday prior to the meeting, Monday to digest everything, and then Tuesday, submit it to Mary Ann to get, or Monday at the end of the day, submit it to Mary Ann to get in the packet for Tuesday, we should be good, that gives,
I think it
that's
needs to
10
be on,
days.
I think it needs to be on the packet 24 before the board meeting. We can't see it on.
Sure,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right.
you
Right,
gotta
so
close
if
it by
it's something you're
Thursday,
voting on,
get
it
it
You
has
have
to
to
be on
close it by end of
advance.
Thursday, so it'd be like, really, it would be up for like 7 days.
Okay.
I think that would be fine. We're talking, I think everybody at this table could manage to read 60 words.
But I think we also want to make sure that the group that was in the room with us when we had that workshop, that they all get an email blast, that, to Tom's point, that the 2 new members have a chance. And so I think there's certain stakeholders, to kind of go animal
I
farm.
don't
like
feel we're
everyone is the same,
obligated
but-
to email everybody that was in the room with us.
Mm-hmm.
Our 2 new board members, yes, absolutely. I don't think it'll take us more than 10 days to mail our 2 new board members. I think we could probably do that pretty efficiently.
Well, what we would do is it would be a general notification that I would just send to the group that was, it wouldn't be like a individual email, it'd just be there based on it will be fine. I think we can pull it off. I have written down a general notification to the group that participated. If they want to review it, they can review it and submit comments. 2 new board members. I do need the 2 questions that you want on the Google Sheet, so if you can send that to me tomorrow, I'll work with IT to get all this posted.
Will do.
I can make the minor changes that we discussed. I'm adding Civic. Me and you can talk, but just send me a Word
I'll
version.
send you what I marked up tonight, and if we have a difference, we have to, I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, and you just send it via Word, so if I got to tweak one word or put a "the" in there like we said.
Yep, I will do.
Okay. I think we could pull it, so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that we should put the word athletic in it. I know you guys don't want it to be too long, but if we're putting artistic, I think athletic should be in there too, because artistic kind of encompasses kids in like the fine arts and visual arts programs, so like art club, theater department, and band and orchestra, choir. But athletic is like totally different from that, and it's a huge program at RB, and a lot of students are involved in sports. And, the students spend like 2 hours, 6 days a week at practice, which is a huge chunk of their life outside of in-person classes that's still being dedicated to school. So I think if we are going to have artistic, we should also have athletic. But that's just my opinion. And also, if you want to cut down on words, 2 words, you could change we value character as well as achievement to just we value character and achievement. So.
Yeah, 2 words. Let's go.
So smart, but to the artistic and athletic, you could take artistic out as well, because the social emotional well-being would encompass that.
You should put athletic too.
Right.
But if you want to, you could take them both out.
So you could take them both out, and the social emotional well-being would work, and that would cut down your number. I mean, because that does encompass it all. I mean,
No, I don't think social emotional encompasses your aesthetic. Your artistic is not so much artistic as much as it is aesthetics. We want people to appreciate the aesthetic form of life, literature, music. Artistic really is looking at literature, art, music, the aesthetic aspects, kind of like your liberal
not
arts.
the band.
So where your academic is, your math, science, something like that. So you're more encompassing that whole, I don't think social emotional at all is synonymous for artistic.
But I don't think
That's a
it
good
really
point.
is for athletic either. Like, at least, like, I just don't see it.
I'm not opposed to having 61 words.
No, that's a good point. You got to appreciate a Monet or something.
I think to me, what is, one of the most important words in this whole thing is well-balanced. That's my personal bias.
Yeah.
Because every student is different. These things are different domains, right? So
Right.
shortening it too much, I'm a little worried, because then
Right.
all of a sudden it could mean anything to anybody. I mean, this is, by having them in, it
Yeah.
commits us to specific
Yeah.
areas. So I'm open to adding athletic back in.
Okay. Nice.
And I support that.
Cool.
We pay a lot of money for that. Back to the money
Yeah,
piece.
yeah.
All right, so we're back where we were.
No, we're at 61, so we
Okay.
grew.
That's good.
Get rid of the part-time.
Well, that's good.
It's
That's what
okay.
these discussions are for. That's what they're about. Okay. Any more thought on that? I don't want to stop it. That's what it's about. All right.